Well, I'm super excited to have Desmond on the call today. If you guys saw in our notes when we sent out this via email, Desmond's a really cool case study of somebody that went from being a practicing agent with no former experience running a brokerage or a team, and essentially achieving some exponential growth over a very short period of time. And so we're going to be, kind of talking to Desmond, going through kind of year by year what he did to be able to achieve this, just mediocre, geometric growth. Just for context for everybody on this call, Des was working in his parents' brokerage just over 3.5 years ago. Is that right, Des?
Yeah, very close to three. It's not quite 3.5, right at 3 and 2 months. Yeah.
And so Des was, I mean, an incredibly successful agent. He was doing a lot of new construction deals, like working in a model home, and was having a lot of success as an agent. And you know, probably like a lot of people out there, kind of hit a ceiling from a time perspective. And what I mean by that is, Des, you were at a position where you couldn't squeeze any more hours out of your day. And like, you kind of hit a proverbial ceiling of 75 to 80 closings a year by yourself. Is that accurate?
Yes, absolutely.
And so you were a little frustrated because you wanted to keep growing, and you knew you needed to make some radical changes if you were going to keep growing, um, and you knew that was going to require a big leap of faith. And so, what were Des? I guess before we go too far, maybe you can tell us briefly uh, what the big leap of faith was you knew you needed to take to be able to grow beyond being a solo producing agent.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris. So basically, when I started or decided to join, the big kind of thing that I was dealing with is I was, we are doing a very good level of production at the time, but I had no time for anything else. It was where I was working nonstop. I had, every deal pretty much came from me and what I could kind of come up with my mom on a kind of a smaller team, so to speak. But we were working nonstop. Every time we took a vacation, we were having to stay on our phone, and we couldn't. We pretty much had no life at all, and we kind of hit a ceiling where it was like, we couldn't do any more, and but we're comfortable. But it was where we were all the business, and I wanted something more where I didn't have to be the entire business just by myself and with my mom. And she had been in real estate like 25 years, and she was still could not take a vacation, could not get away from real estate at all, and still answering her phone nonstop. So I wanted to figure out a way, or and I was trying to do research, and man, there has to be something better where I can actually make money and have a team as well, where I'm not the only source. So that's kind of where I connected with you all, and it's been super beneficial, and our growth was huge in the first year. When I stepped away, I decided to give my mom, because she was the one that got me started, pretty much our entire sphere of business. So of our prospects, everything. I said, I'm going to start from scratch. I'm not
How,
going to be.
Desmond, I got to interrupt you. How, I
Yeah.
mean, I can't even imagine how difficult that conversation was to tell your mom you're gonna go start and do your own thing. Like, oh my God.
Yeah, that was a very difficult conversation, and she was a traditional brokerage of 25 plus years, so she kind of had that mindset like it's just about me and what I produce. There's not enough to go around, but and I'm just going to help myself. And I was like, there has to be something better. And kind of the thing that got me was like, I was successful in real estate because I had a mentor, I had a coach, I had someone that could show me. But so many people came into her traditional brokerage and failed in real estate, at the time. And I was like, man, some of these agents could be good. They just didn't have any training and knowledge. But yeah, it was tough to leave all this fear, and it was scary at the time too, because like you're going from transactions a year to saying, hey, I'm going to start from zero and start with nothing. When I came into real estate, I already had kind of that nest egg. So it was a scary
and so
thought.
you for clarity, your mom made you give the database to her. You couldn't take your database with you.
No, I couldn't take any of my database with me, and that was kind of my decision. She had helped me grow, and I kind of agreed that I would leave everything to the side. So no prospects, no previous clients. Everything had been in my mom's name. So when I stepped away, it was just like, hey, you're starting from ground zero, level one, and you got to go from 70 transactions to nothing day one.
Desmond, can you tell everybody on the call a little bit about your background? Like, where'd you go to college? What'd your degree in, or where are you from? Like, what's the whole like personal backstory for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my story, I started with, and I'm trying to get my video set up here, but I basically.
Oh, you cut out on us, Des.
I think you hit the mute button on accident.
Oh, can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Yep, there you go.
Are you ready for video?
Yeah, I'm almost there.
Okay.
So I started.
This is what happens when you do 350 deals. You get a little busy. You got a lot going on.
Des sent Brad and I an email last week, and he said, "I'm running on my hair on fire. I have 120 deals. Is it 120 in escrow right now?
125.
Is there, how many do you have in escrow, Des?
You're on mute again.
125.
So Des has 120 deals in escrow right now. And so Brad and I were like, dude, people need to hear your story, because there's a lot of people out there that are in a similar situation as you, Des, where they've hit that proverbial ceiling from a production perspective. And, you literally had to let it all go and start all over. And in a very short period of time, you've exploded. And Des, thank you for doing this. Thanks for sharing your story, and I know that you're going to share a lot of secrets here in just a minute with everybody. But I appreciate you doing this. And so everybody give Des a little bit of grace, because we kind of pushed this on him round of applause. Let's give a round of applause for Des for doing this, to share his insights on how he's done this over the last 36 months.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. We also got our internet changed today, because we had this kind of a growth deal, but we had so many agents logging on that we had to update our internet, and they happened to come this morning and just got it uploaded. So it's just a fun day today, but they're getting it signed up for me.
Brett, Des is in what we call the explosive growth stage in the book, where it's just straight chaos, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and everybody's making a lot of money. So Des, while you're getting your video on, maybe you can just share with everybody, just your background, like where you grew up, like, maybe important, I know your background. I think it's, sometimes people think you have some, like, I don't know, people ask me all the time, they're like, did you grow up in real estate? Were you given a silver spoon or something, like what?
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your background, Des.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I graduated from the University of Texas with a degree in biology, go figure. I actually wanted to be a doctor, and, and that's what my parents had always kind of pushed me to. And then I realized that I kind of liked talking with people and dealing with people. And I was more of a people person than just someone that sits and does surgeries all day. So I kind of made a 180 turn after I graduated from college and got a job with Verizon Wireless, kind of selling cell phones, actually. And, that was kind of my initial kind of job into sales.
There he is.
Okay.
Hey, look at that guy. There he is. Oh, you cut out on us again, Des. You got to unmute yourself. There you are.
Okay, can y'all hear me now?
Loud and clear. Yeah.
Sounds good. Sorry about that. Okay.
you know, I got into that. My parents were always in real estate at the time, but I was more trying to develop something on my own. So I was kind of bouncing around jobs, and every time I got a job, I was kind of chasing the dream of trying to establish something on my own and grow my own self. You know, I kind of elevated myself through Verizon Wireless and went from a sales manager to an area manager to a training manager, and kind of went that route. But it was always kind of a dead end job where you kind of hit a ceiling and a cap that you couldn't get past. So then I switched around to another job. I actually worked for, after that, I went and worked for a furniture company as a general manager, and kind of worked that job for a while. And then I tried to come back and help my mom in real estate. So that was kind of my path into real estate. And after working for her for 7 years and feeling pretty good about where she was at, that's when I made that decision that there must be something better after kind of learning the ropes from her.
Des, what was your mom's business doing from a gross sales perspective? What were you guys doing? Your mom had a business for 25 years. You were in her office selling 75 homes by yourself. Like, what was that office doing from a gross, revenue perspective, gross sales perspective?
From a gross sales perspective, she was doing somewhere between $12 million a year, somewhere around the 12 to 15 million a year, up to 20.
And you guys are doing, and just so everybody can just kind of quantify just how amazing it is, what you've been able to do in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
You're now doing 12 to 20 million per month.
Yeah. I mean, there's some months that we do very close to 12 to 20, 24 million a month. Yeah. 10 to 12 a month. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So what she was doing in a year, you're now doing in a month.
Yeah. It's funny because the very first time I got, when we started and linked up, and I was like, I remember telling you, I was like, yeah, I'll be lucky to do about, 20 or 30 deals, because I was basing it on my mom doing 70 in a year. And I remember that first year we did right over 120 the very first year, which was 50 deals more than my mom had done in her career, yearly. So it was just a kind of a shocking realization just how much things can change and your perspective can change.
Before we move into like the nuts and bolts of how Desmond has been able to execute and pull off on this, does anybody have any questions? Feel free to chime in the chat box. If you want to ask Des anything before we start really drilling down into the nuts and bolts of what the key objectives were that he accomplished in year one to go from 0 to 120 closings, and then 120 to 250, and then from 250 to 350, and obviously now he's at a point where he has 125 deals just sitting in escrow. Does anybody have any questions before we dig too much deeper? What did your day look like? Oh, Kyle asked this question. What did your average day look like in year one? How would you how was your time allocated, Desmond, on a daily basis in year one?
So it was a lot of strategic planning, because a lot of in year one, you're captain everything. You're literally kind of trying to juggle everything at one time. So it can be absolute chaos in that first year. I mean, it still can be chaos, obviously, as you grow, but in that year one, you're trying to do everything all at once. So my day had to be very structured in the beginning. I would map out my day every day of things that I need to accomplish and make sure that I accomplish those tasks every day.
Tell me what those time blocks looked like. What were you doing in those time blocks?
So one of the first things we would do is I get there really early in the morning, kind of get myself set up. One of the first things that we would do in the morning is I actually do a little role playing with myself and actually my wife at the time, and kind of do some role playing on expireds, because that was one of the things that in my mom's brokerage, because I was working new bills, I'd never really done expired listings before. So I would do a little bit of role playing, say at 7:30 in the morning. But 7 a.m. I would start doing I would go through my emails from the previous night and so forth. But then at 8 o'clock, right when 8 o'clock hit, I would start calling expireds for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And And then after that, I would have my recruiting sessions, and most of my recruiting time was at lunch. Actually, I would do a lot of recruiting for lunch, like since I had to eat and agents needed to eat too. When I would have those recruiting appointments, I would make them during lunchtime because that was the best time for me to get it going.
So let me clarify what you've said. So far I've heard from 7 to 8, you're doing preparation work to prepare for roughly a 2-hour time block of outbound prospecting from 8 to 10.
Mhm.
And then you were setting appointments with potential agents to join your team up until about lunchtime. And then at lunchtime, you were meeting with prospective agents. Is that accurate so far?
Yes, absolutely. For the very beginning, and then somewhere squeezed in there in between 10 and 12, I would meet with my buyer agent team, which was very small back then, but we would have some kind of we would have a little bit of training there in the morning as well for about an hour in between my calls and lunch.
And then talk to me about the afternoons and weekends. What did the rest of your time blocks look like?
Okay. Yeah. So after that, we would do the, I go to lunch, have either work with someone for brand ambassador or the recruiting, meet with agents during lunchtime. Then when I come back, I would spend more time with the buyer side, and prospect with go on listing appointments, because I had to be the listing agent as well at the time. So I'd have to go on my listing appointments. A lot of times I would try to schedule that in the afternoons. And then around 4 or 5, I would come back and I would make another round of expireds and call them from about 4 to 6:30 or so. And then from 6:30 on, I would go back and kind of regroup for my day and plan my next day and go through emails and answer, because I was also my transaction coordinator as well. So a lot of my transaction time was at nighttime as well. So, at the beginning, it was a lot of 12-hour, 13-hour, 14-hour days at the beginning, because I saw the writing on the wall that put in all the hard work in the beginning to fast track my growth now, where I don't have to spend as much time.
Okay, you've got meetings with potential agents and vendors that are going to kick in money to the brand ambassador program around lunchtime, and then you would go back to the office in the afternoon, spend time with the agents, or potentially you're out on listing appointments. And then you had another dedicated time block from 5 to 6:30 roughly of outbound prospecting.
5 to 7, depending on how many calls I had.
Yeah. And then from like 6:30 through 7, 8 o'clock at night, you're doing like transaction management related type work, servicing customers.
Absolutely.
And then how many days a week were you having to work?
In the beginning, 7, all 7. So pretty much every day. Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, great. So that's a great outline. And somebody asked, Des, how many agents do you have right now? How many listing agents and how many buyers agents do you have?
Right now I have 1 listing agent and I have 13 buyer agents.
Okay.
And then I have a builder agent as well. Someone that helps.
So you have roughly 14 salespeople that are responsible for the 125 deals in escrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. And somebody asked if you're still actively selling. Are you out on listing appointments and meeting with buyers?
No, I was joking with my listing agent the other day. I mean, every now and again, I've done some kind of show my face appointment with my listing agent, but for the most part, I haven't done a listing appointment in probably at least a year and a half, probably a true listing appointment by myself.
That's great. So it sounds like about 18 months after starting your time, you were able to start taking off hats and delegating to other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I pretty much haven't been on listing at least 18 months, probably even 18 to 24 months has been, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Hey, Chris, we have a little timeline that we can put up on the screen, but and I'll do that in just a second. But I think one quick note that I don't want to gloss over is when Des rebuilt his team, he because those previous relationships were created under a different brokerage, Des, you had to walk away from basically your entire database, which, for those of us who became, higher producers by building a database of Sphere, building a database of past client referrals, that's the actual nightmare, right? Just to start over.
So Des, how many listings will your listing agent carry?
Sorry, that's my wife. She was leaving. Yeah. So, at one time, depending on the part of the year, she's usually got about 15 or so, 15 at a time. 15.
How many homes will your listing agent sell? Like over the course of a year?
Over the course of a year, she'll sell about 120, 130 total.
Okay, and then somebody asked, how do you keep your listing agent from leaving and taking all of your business?
Yeah, so the big thing is that we give her stability here. Like, I mean, the support staff that we have, she's got a dedicated listing manager that literally helps her out with her transactions. She's getting fed the leads, and she understands, like, basically, like, she's going to the listing appointments. We create a lot of value for her to stay because she just goes on the listing appointments. We already are hand feeding her the people, and she understands. She's been in real estate a while, actually, and she knows how hard it is to secure these listings. And we're basically hand feeding her those listings, and we have a great compensation package.
So she wakes up in the morning and she has appointments on her calendar that she didn't have to prospect or go and get. And then
Exactly.
she gets the agreement signed, turns them in, and then moves on to the next appointment.
Yeah. So it's
Some
super easy. I mean, that's
somebody's asking what does she get paid? What percentage of gross revenue of the gross commission does your listing agent make?
she gets a certain commission structure based on if she gets a different 7% or 6% listing, but it's 15% if she gets 7, and then 10% if she gets 6.
So you have an 85-15 split, meaning you keep 85%, she
Mhm.
gets 15%, and that's when she takes the listing at 7%.
Yes.
And then
That's
how often are you getting listings signed at 7%?
about 80 to 85% of the time.
Okay. All right, great. We've got a lot of really great questions. So what we're going to do next is we're going to actually like start diving into the nuts and bolts. You guys have asked some great questions. Kyle, that was a really good question asking about what Dez's schedule looked like. You guys have probably heard that saying, like, you're ultimately, like, if you want to look at what your results are going to look like 3 months from now, just go look at your calendar. What are you doing day to day? Your calendar is going to define the success you achieve in the next 90 days. And so that's probably one of the best questions I've seen asked so far today is what did Des's calendar look like? Because if you can model Desmond's calendar and implement, like it takes a very special person to be disciplined and committed enough to have those kind of time blocks and most importantly execute on. Like you got to be incredibly disciplined and committed to doing that. And so, Des, props to you, man, because there's very, very few people in this world that'll, are willing to commit to time blocks. Everything sounds good in theory, but nobody actually executes. And the execution is 99% of the battle. So 2018, Des, you walked away from your mom's brokerage. You had to give up your sphere, started all over. You joined the WR network with Brad and I. And in your first year, you followed that schedule you mentioned. You finished the year in 2018 with 124 units from 0 deals. In 2019, you hired your first team leader that helped you with recruiting agents, selecting agents, managing the agents. You spent a lot of one of your key rocks in 2019 was recruiting more agents, right? How many people did you onboard in 2019?
And 2019, I probably had we had about 8 and 9 total buy agents, but I mean we probably recruited 20, 25 or so.
What was one of your greatest ahas about recruiting, right? Like, because you worked in the cell phone industry and you had been in management before, but like, what was one of your biggest ahas about like recruiting and selecting agents in those, first 12 to 18 months?
Yeah. So, it was about finding the right people and finding people that were motivated, and a lot of people that we recruited and we interviewed were great people, and the common thing that they told us was that they just didn't know how to be an agent. Like that's, you go through your classes and everything, and they couldn't figure out how to be an agent. But my biggest kind of aha in 2019, when I look back, is that, I was recruiting not only for agents at the time, just like agents that I could, that I could have as a buyer agent, but I learned that these are going to be my future leaders. And the more people that I could recruit and speak with, the better chance I would find the leader that I needed to help take me to the next level. And that's why I found that team lead that was instrumental in helping us grow, because that was a big, as you grow, you keep having these time sucks that are taking your mind away from where it needs to be. And that team lead person that I had was amazing and really, really helped me release a lot on the buyer team and help grow that side as well.
And so, like, did you discover that from a recruiting perspective, you had to hire a lot of people to identify the right ones that would work out?
Absolutely. I mean,
Was your like when you onboarded people, was there a high like failure rate like in the first couple months?
yeah, absolutely. So I mean, the higher level of talent that you're trying to find, the more people you have to go in to find that, because they're kind of those diamonds in the rough. And as you hire people, people would have really good interviews, but really until they get in there and show you what they can do, that's when you actually truly see people's true colors. And even though we have many systems in place to kind of weed people out and get the great people, you still have a high turnover as far as getting those right fits for the team, as far as not just selling, but also the culture. Culture was a super important thing, because you're trying to build something, and culture will bring in more people as you create a better culture.
So you're when you say high turnover rate, are you referencing like in the first couple months when you actually see them practicing and you realize they're a bunch of, they're a slacker and you got to cut them off the team?
Yeah, yeah. We kind of we have structure there, and some people view, I tell the agents, I'm like, if you treat real estate as a career, because instead of just kind of like a hobby or a side job, you can be successful in it, but you have to put in the time and the work. And a lot of people would come in and say how great they were gonna do, but never put it in. So it was in the first, like, normally you find those people in the first 30 days, those people that you recruited and thought were going to be rock stars and didn't. And then you have people that maybe you were on the fence about. And that's kind of the beauty of it sometimes too, is you have these people that are on the fence and they actually turn out to be rock stars when you put them through the training, and just they come out of their shell and they become even better. So it's that first like 30 days, it was a pretty high turnover.
How many people, like if we think about this like statistics, like how many people do you have to hire to find one badass, for example, that's going to sell 120 homes in a year?
Yeah.
Like how many people do you have to onboard and then, either fire or let go to find that real, badass?
I feel like I got pretty lucky, and I was my team lead was probably my 20th hire, maybe 25th. And I feel like I was extremely lucky because, from that point, it's been hard to find similar people. So, I mean, it could take 25, 30, 50 potential people to find that rock star is going to take you to the next level, but you only find that person by continuing to recruit.
So hopefully the takeaway, people that are listening to this, the thing I hope they pick up on is you kind of have to have this flywheel from a recruiting perspective. And it's not that you're trying to recruit hundreds of agents, but you have to have a flywheel of getting people in the door and testing them out to be able to find the diamonds in the rough that are going to go and actually execute at a really high level.
Yeah, absolutely. That's 100% correct. But I tell you what, when you find that right person, it definitely makes is all worth it. I mean, when you start finding those key leaders out of rotating the people around and interviewing more and more people, it's like that kind of drives you to keep recruiting, because me as a owner, I'm focused on obviously the buyer agents, but I'm focused on those future key people that are going to help me get out of the business. So every time one of those candidates come up, that's going to be a key piece in the company, that gets me even more motivated and excited and keeps the recruiting spindle going.
So Des, somebody asked the question, what is your marketing budget to generate 350 transactions? But before you answer that question, I mean, when you started your business, in a sense, you were bootstrapping it, right? It's not like you had millions of dollars in the bank to start. So how did you get the money to pay for the lead generation to support the agents in that first year? When you didn't have, you didn't have $1 million in the bank, or, whatever to grow.
Yeah. So, that was one of my biggest fears. And, when I started, and because we had 0 contracts on the book, so no money coming in at the time, it's like, how was I going to figure out a way to get some money? And, by working with you all and y'all telling me about the brand ambassador program, that was really how we kind of bankrolled our lead budget. And at the beginning, it was more of meeting with people and discussing our vision and future, of where we wanted to go. And we were able to get some vendors and partners to actually help give us some money.
And you were calling to convince people to kick in money for the brand ambassador program. Like, how much were you able to raise to apply towards your lead generation campaign?
It's a total of about 25,000 a month now, 24, 25,000.
So you're collecting $25,000 a month. Holy cow. I didn't know it was that much, man. Congrats. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Okay. So you're bringing in 25,000 a month. How much are you spending on marketing in order to, generate 350 closings? How much did you have to spend in marketing last year to do that?
After all from all the lender partners and everything, we were spending about $8,000 a month, 7.
Wow. So you spent 7,000 to 8,000 a month. So that's times 12 months. So you spent less than $100,000 to generate 350 closings.
Yep.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So hopefully, I think we did a great job answering that question. Guys, be sure to chime in on the chat box if you guys have any questions for Des. We're going to go ahead and I want to go back into more, talk more about 2020. So 2020 that's when you hired your first listing agent to replace you on appointments. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah.
How hard was that to like give up, the listing appointments, like the control factor, right? Like how difficult was that?
What's funny is it was very difficult at the beginning because it's kind of like my baby a little bit at the beginning because like, okay, listings, and that's where we're getting, I was getting like, 7% on most of the listings. So it was, it was highly profitable because I didn't have a listing agent to split that with. And, so at the beginning I was kind of thinking like, oh man, I want to keep these things. But then when I hired that listing agent and with the pay structure that she has, the 15%, I literally could step away completely and still the company is making 85% of the money without me even going on appointment, doing anything. So it quickly turned into me being like, oh, I want to keep my baby to here, you have it all. I don't want to do anything. Sure. So because it's like, that 15% is one of the most profitable things that I could give away, just to have her do everything, control that. And she takes very good pride in it. And I don't have to go on any appointments. It frees up tons of my time. Because that was, I was going on those appointments every week and my weekends were filled up with that. And then being a step away, that gave me, 20, 30 hours back of my day at the time. So it was, or my week, 20 to 30 hours of my week back.
Yeah. Des, something, just to take a quick step back. So 2018, you were getting 2,500 a month. And it sounds like now you're getting 25,000 per month. Tell us how did that scale? Like, for example, year one was 2,500. Like, what was it in year two? How much money did you get in year two? How much, obviously year three, you got to 25,000. Like, from 2,500 to 25,000, that's a massive gap. And that all happened in less than 3 years. What was the next stepping stone, right? Like what did you get in year two? You went from 2,500 to what?
Yeah, 2,500. By the end of year one, we're probably close to about 7,000 or 8,000. Probably is maybe 6,000 or 7,000. Maybe by the end of year one, we kind of increased it. By year two, we're closer to 14 to 15,000 in year two.
Okay, so year one out of the gate, I think this is important for people to hear. So year one, out of the gate, you have no team yet. You're pitching the vision of what you're building, and you get $2,500 set up, and then you start spending that money on agents, and you keep building and building. And towards the end of the year, you're finding success for the vendors, and then they start kicking in more money. So you get to, you said 7,000 to 8,000, and then in year two, you said 16,000, and then last year you got it pushed to 25,000.
About 20.
Okay. Cool. So that was the sequence. We've had a lot of people on here asking about how to avoid respite issues by not spending an amount equal to what you're receiving from the mortgage and title companies. And so you're offsetting what the mortgage is spending by using the dollars from the other non-settlement service providers. Is that accurate?
Yeah, so that's basically what it is.
And you're also kicking in 7,000 to 8,000 per month yourself.
Mhm.
So the mortgage company is spending less than 50% of your gross lead generation to maintain RESPA compliance, right?
Yeah,
Is that
so
accurate?
basically, so basically when I say I'm paying more, but like when I deduct everything that everybody else is giving me, that's
Yeah.
why my split is only that amount.
So if just so to re-clarify all that, so you're getting 25,000 in brand ambassador dollars, but only 16,000 of that is going to from the lender, and then you're coming out of your own pocket another 8,000. So 25,000 plus 8. Your total advertising spend is, if I'm doing my math right, $33,000.
Yeah.
And so out of that 33,000 in gross ad spend, the lender is only kicking in 16.
Yeah, less than
Okay,
that.
got it. All right, so that makes sense. Hopefully that answers Michael's question about RESPA and P53. Okay, so that's cool. That makes a lot of sense now on how you scaled the brand ambassador dollars. Something you did, I guess was it starting in 2019 or 2020 when you started scaling up beyond digital marketing, and you started working doing some like more old school stuff like radio and billboards. Was that 2019 or 2020 when you started doing that?
2019,
Okay,
or the end of 2019.
so you started adding radio in your second year, and then in your third year you added, was it billboards? Is that when you added billboards?
Yeah, I added more billboards. I added billboards near the end of 2019, then I added more in 2020.
Okay. And so your listing side business is, and then if people are looking at the slide deck, something else you did was you landed some of these spec home builders, like some smaller spec home builders.
Mhm.
What were they doing? How many homes were they doing a year?
So one was doing about, actually I had three. So one was doing about 20 to 25, and the other one's doing more of a smaller scale, about 12.
Okay.
And,
Cool. So you added some home builders. So that's one piece of your listing side business, and then your other piece is radio, billboards, the leads that come in from the buy side when somebody says they need to sell, right? And then what does the buy side lead generation look like? I mean, obviously, like sign calls, open houses.
Yeah.
Where are you guys spending money to generate leads for your agents? Are you using Zillow or Realtor.com or Google?
A combination of between Zillow, Realtor.com, pay-per-click, Google advertising. So it's a combination of those, and then also, of course, the sign calls and everything as well. Sign calls, open houses. They have numerous, and then office calls. Actually, those have gone up drastically the last few months, and actually a few years. Ever since we started getting the billboards and the radio, we actually get a lot of buyer call-ins too.
So I see Chandler Crouch said he was driving from Dallas down to Austin, and he said he saw one of your billboards. They're pretty sharp.
Yeah, there is one right there on I-14 on the corner, right when you pass by Temple. There's a billboard there. It's it's funny. It's a crazy story about like billboards and radio. Actually, there was when I first started and I was calling these expireds in the very beginning. I would go on these appointments and they're like, who are you? You know, like they had no clue who I was and like what I was doing. I was having to tell them like, hey, I'm a new broker. I've got a new company. I'm getting myself started. There's all this whole, like, I'm going to put everything I can on there. So I met with them, and I used to always have to explain myself. And then once we got billboard and radio, we had kind of saturated the market with that stuff. And you fast forward about a year to a year and a half later, and everybody was saying, man, Desmond Graham, you've been around for 10, 15 years. I know you. And it's like, no, I've only been around for like a year and a half, but like literally everybody thought I had been around for like 10, 15 years just because we had saturated the market with great advertisement and billboards and radio, that they just thought I was like someone who had been advertised everywhere.
So do you think it would have been a mistake to do radio and billboards earlier in your business? Do you feel like you did it the right way, launching by focusing on outbound prospecting and then layering in marketing? Could you imagine doing it in the reverse?
No, it's great when you get there, but like the expireds and those are the what, because I didn't have at the time, I didn't have any income coming in, and those sources are very expensive. So it was one of those where we had to we had to get some income generated first. So calling expires was kind of our first thing that we had to do to kind of generate some income in order to do it. But it did move very quickly once we went to billboards and radio, a lot faster than I thought, as far as when leads started coming in from those sources.
So the outbound prospecting, if I'm hearing you correctly, is what helped create the revenue for you to be able to afford these very expensive marketing campaigns, like radio and billboard.
Absolutely.
And so Eugene Clark says, how are you getting listing leads, expireds, SOI, past clients? I think we answered that, Eugene. So he's getting leads through radio, billboards, his buyer agents are generating leads. Obviously you've got some sphere and past clients now. Cool. And then somebody asked, what percentage of your 350 deals came from builders? Des, you just answered that. Like 25 deals came from one builder, 12 deals came from another. And then the other question they had is, what do you charge the builders from a commission perspective?
So we charge 2% to the builders here in our area. That's kind of the going rate. 5% total, 2% for the listing side. But then if we have both sides, obviously we get 5%, which is what we get on a lot of deals.
Yeah, you double into a lot of those builder deals, right?
Yeah. I mean, probably about a third to between a third of them are double sided, meaning we get both sides, and especially with the market where it is right now. I mean, that's a huge leverage for the buyer agents too, because they have access to those builder deals, and the buyer agents sell a lot of the builders' houses themselves.
Would anybody I'm sorry, I'm throwing this field out of left field, and don't kill me, Des. Does anybody want to be coached by Desmond Graham? Chime in under the yes. Maybe we can convince Des to teach one of our training classes, and help people out that are, basically where he was 3 years ago. Ernie says yes. Who else? Come on, let me see some yeses on here. Sorry, Des. This Marine says yes too. Don, I'm getting a lot of people. Yeah, there goes everybody. Yeah, man. What you have done is absolutely incredible, dude. Like, I mean, I don't, I could probably count on one hand the number of people I know that have been able to do what you've done. So mad props to you. Brad, is there, we have a slide deck with some other kind of nuts and bolts specific to what Des has done. Can you pull that back up for us, Brad?
Yep. So we talked to Des and I about like 3 keys before the webinar. We talked about 3 key, impact zones that he worked on. We sort of started to touch on that first one, which is the listing inventory. In the early days, basically the question is like, hey, what are the things that you did that really, in hindsight, made a big difference and helped you launch and steepen that growth curve? And here we are on listing. So what else do we need to convey in terms of the listing operation? Des, we talked about expireds, radio and TV, and then maybe say a little bit more about those builder relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. So my mom and I had done kind of builder deals. And obviously when I left her the builder that we had. So I didn't have a builder. But kind of one of the things when several of the people, you get the builder deals by selling their products. I get a lot of agents that call me or selling their homes. And I get a lot of people that call me around here and say, how are you getting these builder deals? And one of the builders actually got in touch with me probably maybe less than 2 weeks after our billboard went up, which was kind of strange. It was like one of my first kind of listing leads. He was like, hey, do you mind, do you sell like builder homes too, or is it just, resale homes? And I was like, no, I'll do builder deals. Absolutely. So
bring it on.
Yeah. So at the time, that builder, funny enough, was using different agents to list his properties. He would basically, you sell one of his listings, he would maybe call an agent and say, hey, do you want to list one of my properties? And, every time he had a listing come up, he would just give it to all these random agents. So when he called me, I said, let's sit down and let's chat about like what we can do to help you as a builder and help your life, make your life easier. Mm-hmm. So I set up a meeting with him and I sat him down and said, I'll gladly take this listing for you and help you sell it. And I laid down all the things that we're going to be doing for him to help it make his life easier. And I said, once you do this, like, isn't it tough, like having to call like 5-6 different agents on each one of your listings to get updates? Wouldn't you love to kind of streamline that one day? And he was like, you know what? Absolutely. Like, yeah. So we sold his first listing. We went, you know, you do things to go over the top because, um, builders, what I've learned, they have a certain perception a lot of times of realtors. So that's what you always have to think about: who's your audience in front of you, and what way can you debuff the things that they think of you that you're sitting here. So like, you know, he's sitting here, he's like, oh, realtors are greedy. They just go cash a check and get their check, and that's all they do, and this and that. So, you know, when I got those deals, I was overly updating them. Like, I mean, I would send them emails. Oh yeah, we just got your email. You just got your listing live. Here's a copy of all the pictures, similar to what we do on the listing side, but, you know, went over the top to do that. Give him updates on showings. We have that process set up. So we translate that over and just really made his life so much easier. And, you know, we sold the listing pretty quick. He was so happy with the process. He was like, you're absolutely right. You want this one? And then he's like, you want this one too? And he's like, you know what? You can just have them all. Thank you. You're doing an amazing job. So that's kind of how it ended up. But I mean, he just called me to do one listing, and I just saw it as an opportunity to secure some more. And he's the most awesome builder as far as that I have, is just because he literally just gets a house started and then he calls me and says, hey, listed. And we keep him updated through my transaction coordinator, and you know, he loves us to death and doesn't want to ever get rid of us. And that's a great feeling. So
That's great.
What you shared with us is that there's kind of a sweet spot in terms of their production. Like, they can't be too small, where this is almost like a, you know, kind of a hobby thing. They can't be too big where it gets too corporate, and it makes sense for them to have on sites. It's like that 25, 50, 100-ish top end.
It's kind of that sub, you know, in the 20 home or less range. I think when they get kind of, you know, a little bit bigger, it's a little harder for that, as far as them to do that. So these are kind of like the local builders, the builders that are building in your local area, not like the D.R. Hortons and the Centexes and all those guys that, you know, at least when I used to know about them more, they don't pay you anything. They just used to let you, you know, put it on MLS and stuff. But these are like the more local, smaller builders that are really don't have, you know, depending on your area, a lot of them don't have much structure, because they're kind of like we are, like you are probably right now, where you're just like all over the place. And, you know, some of you all are right now, but
Yeah.
They are lacking structure themselves because they're just building so few homes. They really don't have the time to put the systems in place. And that's where one of the ways you can get in with the builder is to put that structure in place for them. And that really helps out a lot.
And you were able to persuade one of the builders to build a model for you all, so that your agents could staff that model and get the buyer leads.
Yeah, that's the other thing, because that was one of the things that they were like, oh, my homes just sit there, nobody ever sits there. So I mean, every agent we had, all those buyers agents, were glad to sit at the model home. So it's great, because it was an extra opportunity for the company, but it wasn't something that I had to fully manage myself and actually sit in like, I wasn't sitting in the models, but agents were, and we're happy to do it, because an open house that's, you know, higher price points, because I mean, these are not the 150, 200, you know, $250, $300,000 deals, which are much better.
Can you attribute other deals? Maybe they didn't buy from this builder, they didn't like his floor plans or whatever, but, you know, we got that audition with our buyer agent. Can you attribute other buyer deals and maybe even some listings that originated in that model?
Yeah, I mean, a ton. I mean, that's probably another oil well where we get listings from, because one, for two different ways. I mean, one, I always tell the agents when they send these open houses that keep in mind, like I ask them, what is your number one goal of sitting in this model home? And, you know, the newbies sometimes be like, sell the home. And I'm like, no, it's to sell yourself and get you a client. Like, it doesn't matter if that client is, obviously we want to sell the builder's home so we can keep sitting there, but your number one goal is to get that person as a client, whether it's get them on a listing, get them to be a buyer, you know, you to be the buyer agent on, but just get them to work with you. That's the number one goal.
So we talked about some of the incredible success that you had coming out of the gates with your brand ambassador program, and then scaling that up really quickly. In hindsight, what are the practical tips? If I'm an agent on this call and I'm doing my 25 deals a year and I want to build my team, and I kind of have maybe a set of limiting beliefs around, you know, I don't know if I'm well positioned to go out there and ask these vendors for money. Maybe you had some limiting beliefs like that, you know, on day one. What would you tell these guys to help them create some early results with their vendor program?
Yeah. So, I mean, you hit it on the nail on the head. That's exactly kind of some of my struggles, because I at the beginning, and not brand ambassador program on me, I'd always been like wanting, I was like, I know there's some way, because we generate so much business for a community. I mean, like in general, there's so many people that benefit when you sell a house. And I was like, man, all this whole 7 to 8 years that I've been doing real estate, I'm like, I really didn't like, nobody helped us. We're the ones that have to go out, and our blood, sweat, and tears are getting these people on the books, and then everybody else just feeds us these things. So I was very motivated to do that. But it's one of those things that a lot of things that I learned through the years is you can't limit yourself by you can't have limiting beliefs or doubts. And the biggest thing I'll say on that, as far as like one of the brand ambassador, I was really very firm on that. And I was very confident every time I met with someone. And that's kind of the thing, is like, when I walked in there, it's like, okay, she's like, I don't really know who you are that much. I kind of knew you, but like some of these people are, you just walk in and you just show them the vision of where you're going to go. And if you're confident and you believe it, then they'll believe it too. Like it's a sales pitch. Like, I mean, we're salespeople in real estate, and we're selling not just homes. And I always tell the agents that we're not selling homes, we're selling ourselves when we go on these appointments. One of my big limiting beliefs and aha moments at the time was, and it's not the brand ambassador side, but the listing side. When I went on my first few listing appointments, everybody here does mostly 6%. So when I wanted to do like the more, the 7% type listings, it was scary for me. And I was just so terrified to lose a deal that I was scared to like show them the benefits I was showing the benefits, but I wasn't confidently asking for the sell. And that was one of the hardest things for me at the beginning. And I remember sitting at my computer after, I think I got my first maybe 6 listings, and I think all 6 of them were 6%, or maybe 5 out of the 6, but almost all of them were 6%. And I was like, and I started putting my pen to the paper, and I was like, I lost 1% on every listing here. And I calculated that up, and it was like, I can't remember the exact number, but it was like 20 some $1,000s. It was ridiculously high when you actually look at how much 1% is for like 6 listings. And I was like, I can't do that. That's a lot of money. Like, I have nothing going, I want to try to get to a certain point. So then my next listing appointment, I went through my presentation that we have, and like, I just said, this is what it is. This is our 7% package. And I was very, very confident with it. And they're like, okay, where can I sign you up? And that was like the aha moment of like, wait a second, like, it's all about confidence. It's about having having your presentation, and having your self-worth is like, I believed at that moment that I'm worth 7%, that I'm better than the other agents, that we're going to provide a product that's better than the other agents. And when I did that and walked in there, like, it's crazy how many people now just go in and say, okay, after I go over my presentation, and it's not any like, well, this realtor said 6, or this realtor said 5, or this realtor said 4. Like, it's more like, hey, we heard your whole presentation. We believe in you because you believe in yourself, and now you're going to get it. And that's kind of, I say that to like, that's how it was with the brand ambassador program for me, is like, when I stepped in that moment, I was like, I'm going to be successful. I already know where I'm going to get. I have this goal. I have this vision of where I want to be in 3 years, and I want to take you with me. And when I said those comments, and we went through the game plan and the strategy that I was going to do to get there, because I was so confident, they believed in me. And that caused them to want to give us money and start with that smaller amount just to see where it goes. Because like, okay, to a lender, depending on what lender you have, I mean, some of them make 1 to 1.5% of the sales price. So, I mean, they can get one deal. There's like, okay, that gamble was worth it. So if you can prove that where you're going and the potential that you have is like, and I told them at the moment, I was like, I'm not looking for a lender that can handle my 15, 20 deals, or maybe even that's 100 deals. I was asking them, hey, how are you going to handle 350 when we get there? Like, how are you going to handle that amount of volume? And that speaks volumes to people when you're sitting there in front of someone with 0 deals, asking them, how are you going to be able to accommodate us when we have 15 agents and we're doing 350 deals, and I'm at deal, I don't even have a deal on the contract at the moment. So yeah, so that confidence is hugely powerful.
That confidence and overcoming limiting beliefs kind of like dovetails into the next key that you shared with me, and that was like, it wasn't the most comfortable thing for me. It wasn't the easiest thing for me, but I sat down, put my butt in the chair, picked up the phone, and I recruited like crazy. So talk to us about some of your recruiting lessons, since that is like the steepest hill, I think, for a lot of us to climb.
Yeah. A lot of that is, the time blocking. And I realized, at a very beginning stage that you have to time blocking allows you to do the things that are uncomfortable for you. So most people are uncomfortable with calling expireds and uncomfortable with calling agents. I mean, we're a fairly small market here. So, you know, calling agents is, you know, when you have 15,000, you know, agents, it's a little easier because like not everybody knows everybody, but here it's, you know, where you have 900, you know, 800 agents, it's like everybody knows everybody. So it's a little harder. So that was you know, something that I didn't really want to do. I mean, but I knew it was important in my growth. So I had to time block it. And even though I didn't want to do it, I was like, okay, here's my time. I got to do it. Just like when I called expireds, it's like, this is the time I have to do it because I know I hate who love. I met very few people that love calling expireds. I met a couple of them through the years that we've hired, but very few agents, people like to call expireds because they're just grumpy people, and you know, and they're a lot harder fruit to get. And so I mean, you have to put in the time and consistently. You got to hear a lot of no's, and you got to kind of overcome a lot of objections, and you know, people don't like no's very much. It takes a very special kind of person to hear no's a lot and still keep going and going. But, you know, keeping your mind focused on the future was always my motivating goal. It's like, I'm not doing this to call expireds and get this listing today. I'm calling this expired to get my future where I don't ever have to do that anymore. I mean, I haven't called an expired in, you know, 2.5 years. You know, I haven't done a buyer agent deal in over close to 2.5 years. I haven't done 2.5, 3 years. I haven't done a listing in, you know, about a year and a half. So, you know, you're doing all these things that you don't want to do, but you always have to keep focused on the things that where you want to go. And that was always what kept me those late nights, because like, you know, sometimes you're thinking that like, I mean, I wanted to put in the work early because I wanted to get myself going and I wanted to get through that. I was like, I got to call these expires every day because I don't want to call them 6 months from now or a year from now. So those were key motivating factors for me as far as that. But recruiting people, we had to keep recruiting because, like I said, when I found my first leader in the company, that was more the aha where I was like, you know what? I'm not just recruiting buyer agents to give a sheer volume. I'm recruiting that next person that can step in, fill in my shoes so he can start recruiting and I don't have to recruit anymore. So it's kind of like I'm finding the key people that can take things that I don't want to do and help me in that sense. So that's one of the things that I, you know, with recruiting, you have to just keep pushing no matter if you don't want to or not. It's about growing not just your agent count, but growing your future leaders.
Awesome. So the kind of takeaways here, you know, you've done some trial and error stuff in the past, but what you shared with me is that everything changed whenever you had kind of a roadmap and a way to say, okay, do this, not that. And skip all of the trial and error stuff. You want to add anything there?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that was one of, you know, when I joined Waters, like one of the biggest things is that like I had a system that I could follow. I mean, that's really the thing. Like I thought about it and I was like, you know, there's so many trials and errors and things when you go along the path that you could, you know, I was trying to do all the research I could to figure out what I could do to be successful. And there's so many things that you just don't know about. And like, you know, like Chris asked me earlier, like, you know, would he see me doing billboards and radio? I might have made that mistake and done it first and never had the income to do it just because I would have tried to jumpstart a step. And like by actually sticking to the game plan, that allowed me to get to where I wanted to go at every step of the way. So when it was time for me to get my expireds, there was a step there. And then I was able to go get billboards and radio and things like that to help me be successful. But if I would have deviated from that path and gone maybe a different way, I would have never been able to get to the level that I've gotten to so quickly. And in general, I mean, if you would have talked to the me 3.5 years ago, 3 years, 4 months ago, I would have told you that, you know, where would you see yourself? Oh, well, I'm hoping I could be here, but like, you know, it's very much like lack of confidence that first me. And I, you know, we've joked about that many times, me and Chris, about like when he asked me what I wanted my goal to be that first year. And I thought I was crazy by saying like I wanted to be in the 40 to 60 range. I thought he was literally going to laugh at me. And literally he was like, why are you so low? Like, and I'm like, because like, do you understand? I have nothing right now. There's nothing that I have. So like, I have no sphere, like I have nothing. And he was like, you know, and I believed in the system and I believed what you guys told me. And I just followed that path and fast forward now. And I'm at a point now in life that, you know, I couldn't have imagined that I would be at already. And, I'm just so thankful for that, and thankful for you and Chris for that.
Chris, you're on mute. Man, we are super. I can't. Proud is not does not
Yeah,
even
proud doesn't do
encapsulate how we
justice.
are.
Yeah.
How we feel about your success. I mean, it's just been amazing to have a front row seat to that. Chris, turning it back over to you.
Yeah. So, guys, I think most people on here, if you guys have been on any of our webinars, you know that we have a small coaching business. Brad and I do, and we're actually in the middle. It's actually it's becoming a nonprofit, and it's a way for us to give back to the realtor community across the United States. Back in 2013 and 2014, when I felt like I found the gold under the rainbow, if you will. I felt like we had to tell everybody on planet Earth what we were doing. And so, Brad and I are very busy. We have our group out of Austin that, did just shy of 1,000 deals, and we're working with people like Des in 17 different markets across the US. And so, again, if you've been on any of our webinars, there's a couple things Brad and I do from an educational perspective. And these are the things that we feel like could probably have the biggest impact. They're things that, are not readily available in the coaching industry. And we do this, it's a not-for-profit thing for us. Actually, we're in the middle of filing our 503C or whatever it is, for our coaching business to be a nonprofit. So everything we do is from a very much an altruistic perspective. And so we actually got Desmond to agree to coach our next, to be a part of our next CEO masterclass. This is really the staple of the thing that Brad and I teach, because Brad and I have been through every coaching program out there, and they were all unbelievable. If you need to learn how to be a great salesperson, there's a lot of great coaching companies out there to be a good salesperson. The one thing that's really lacking in the industry is how to help people go from being an agent to an owner. There's a huge gap. Literally, like Brad and I, years and years ago, we had to go outside of the industry to start getting coaching around leadership and what the hell does a CEO do on a day-to-day basis? What exactly does that job look like? How do you scale up to that? And so, I hope 10, 20 years from now, I hope the greatest gift we give to the industry is our ability to help people transition from being a producing agent to actually owning a legitimate business that can run without you. And so the first step in that direction, if you're on this webinar right now and you're interested in making that leap to go from being a producing agent to running a business, is a class Brad and I teach called the CEO Masterclass. And so Desmond is going to be joining us in teaching this and working with you if you sign up. This is the first time Des has ever done this. The only thing Des does is work with his individual team. And so he'll be on these coaching calls with you if you sign up for this CEO Masterclass. This is probably a one-time deal for Des. As you guys heard, he has 125 deals in escrow, and he's very busy trying to get his leadership bench built so that he won't actually have to go in the office anymore, and the business will run without him. That's what he's in the middle of doing right now. And so the CEO Masterclass is it's a 3-month class that we teach, and it's a very intimate thing we do. We do this live, and we only allow a small class size. So there's no more than 7 to 10 people in the class, and Brad and I only do this once a month. So we've had, I don't know at this point how many people, hundreds and hundreds, go through this, but it's been over the course of the last 3 years, and the results have been pretty astonishing, the people that have gone through this. So some of the things you guys are going to get if you go through the CEO Masterclass is first off, the classes are every other week, and it's 1 hour of very much education. So the first hour is very much education focused, and each call has a very specific topic. So for those of you that read the book, The $1 Million Real Estate Team, we talked about the 7 impact zones of your business. And so each one of these sessions is specific to that impact zone. And then we have 30 minutes of Q&A at the end of each call. So for example, class number 1 is going to be all about interviewing, recruiting, and vetting talent. So if you heard from Des, you talked about how, you've got to have this flywheel to, get agents in the door and to test them out to see who's actually going to make it. And then you've got to let go of the people that, are not willing to commit to the standard that you set. The second class we teach is about the value proposition to actually attract agents. So this is how you actually get agents to come on board for these commission splits. So if you heard Des earlier, his listing agent is getting paid 15% of the gross revenue. Some of you guys might be giving the agent 85%, and Des is doing the complete inverse of that, right? So it's like, how do you articulate that value proposition? And then how do you also hedge your downside to make sure you get the wrong people off the bus as quickly as possible? Our third class is very much about the lead generation machine. So this, we talk about the outbound prospecting, the various things to generate the leads. Our goal as business owners when we're building a team is to set our agents up for success. And so one of the biggest mistakes, I made personally 10 years ago was I'm a millennial. I think most everybody knows that. And I was very big into internet lead generation. And what I learned though, is you cannot just give internet leads to agents, because if you do, they will fail. They have to have multiple oil wells to succeed. And they need leads that are going to close faster than 6 to 12 months. So we dive into that in class number 3. The fourth class is what we call is the art of leadership. So there's class 4 and 5 kind of go hand in hand specific to leadership. There's what we call as the art of leadership. So this is about culture. Anybody, maybe show of hands, how many people have seen that movie with Leonardo DiCaprio called The Wolf of Wall Street? So how do you create that type of environment where people want to show up and it's like this high energy, results oriented environment? Now, I'm not saying, you should go do all the drugs and all the bad stuff in the movie. I'm not saying do that, but imagine that type of high energy environment. And so that's where the art of leadership really comes in. And then the science of leadership is really about the numbers. Your job as a coach and a trainer to your agents is to understand where do you need to spend your time to help your agents be successful. And the only way to do that is to be tracking certain key performance indicators. So for example, the first thing you want to track is how many calls is your agent actually making? Because that's a function of effort, right? Are they applying enough effort or not? And so the way you track that is the number of calls. Well, how do you track how good they are on the phone? Well, you look at how many calls they made and how many appointments were set. That conversion metric tells you if they need help with inside sales. So there's some overarching things that we have to teach agents. Number 1 is we have to teach them inside sales, how to book on the phone, overcome objections. Number 2, outside sales. So what do you say in person to get someone committed to working with you? And number 3, subject matter expertise. And so anyways, we talk about in class number 5, the science of leadership, specifically the accountability and the reports you need to put in place so that you can help lead your agents to success. And then our last class is really about helping you refine your roadmap over the next 12 months and optimize your business. So we actually have some homework for you guys that you're going to have to complete. It's a 2-week homework assignment. It's something you'll go through, and it's going to be a daily thing you have to do for us. And you'll turn this in, and it helps us understand what little pivots you can make to start having a dramatic impact on your business. Those are the 6 classes. They're every other week. And there's 30 minutes of Q&A after each one. And these are taught live. And then something that's not on the slide deck right now is we're also going to be bringing in Des. So Des has literally been in the trenches the last 3 years, and he will be a part of this class. Something else we're going to do is we're going to do a one-on-one audit. So literally at the end of the 90 days, we're going to go through your homework, and we're going to have a one-on-one call with you to really audit your business and really help create some clarity around that roadmap so you do the right things in the right order. There's some other cool things we're going to throw in for the people that sign up for the CEO Masterclass today. Again, it's a very small group. We only allow 7 to 10 people, and we only, I think we only sign up like 1 or 2 groups per month. So this is, it's a very limited deal. And this is a very altruistic thing Brad and I do, and now we're bringing in Des to give back to the real estate world to help people that are trying to build a team. Brad, move to the next slide for me. So you guys might be asking, what else do you need if you go through the CEO Masterclass? So there's a lot of downloadable tools and templates we're going to give you throughout the class. Each one of these classes is recorded, and you can go on and watch this at any given time. So for example, there's the Buyer Agent Bootcamp outline. We're going to give you our training schedule for buyer agents when they join. We're going to give you a lot of the documentation about, like vendor disclosure templates. We had a lot of people ask about P53 and all these other things. We'll share with you our hiring process. So some of the key questionnaires we go through in the actual interview itself. For example, the personal narrative interview, the core values assessment. We'll also share with you some of our things specific to how do we get agents to perform at a really high level. We use something called the self-directed accountability group. So this is just the tip of the iceberg. By the way, if you guys look in the comment section on the right-hand side, we have quite a number of people that are on this webinar right now that have been through the CEO Masterclass, and you guys can read their comments in the chat box. Eduardo said it's life-changing. Maureen said she would do it over again and again. Amy said, great class, highly recommend. So one other thing we're going to share with you guys is the Brand Ambassador Program, kind of an in-depth look at the Brand Ambassador Program. And so we actually recorded this. So this isn't something we do live. We recorded these classes, showing people how to set it up. And you can watch it from home when you're laying in bed. It's 16 classes. Each one's about an hour, and it talks specifically about the execution of the Brand Ambassador Program. We also have a workbook for the Brand Ambassador Program, an editable Brand Ambassador presentation, and we have a list of all the 26 different vendors. These are 26 non-competing local businesses that would be willing to give you money. This isn't theoretical. These are people like, we've all collected money from, and we have a great partnership with in our local community. They've also become unbelievable referral sources for our business. So the Brand Ambassador Program, you'll get all the nuts and bolts about that. That's something you're going to do in between weeks. So like when we're not doing the live classes in between, you'll be going through the Brand Ambassador Program online. And then for the first 10 people that sign up, we've got some cool little gifts we're going to give. One is our financial model. So for example, Des shared a little bit about the commission split with listing agents. Somebody asked, how do you incentivize agents to recruit for you? Well, we'll talk about that. We'll go into all the nuts and bolts of the financial model. So you'll get a sample of our financial model specific to commission splits for salespeople that we'll share with you. You're also going to get to book a one-day discovery pass down in Austin, Texas. So all you have to do is pay for your flight. You'll get to spend a day in Austin. Maybe I'll convince Desmond to come into Austin for the day. I might be asking too much. And you'll get to see behind the scenes. So you guys can meet our inside sales agents that are booking. Our inside sales team booked 206 listing appointments last month alone. You can sit back there, watch them work, see how they do it. A lot of people are looking for listings right now. There's a shortage of listings, right? So you can see our listing agents and our inside sales reps behind the scenes. There's what's the last thing you need to becoming a CEO? Well, that's what I mentioned earlier, a private business audit. This is probably the most powerful thing that I can offer you. Is like once I actually understand your business enough, and then you have some fundamental knowledge about what you'll learn through the CEO Masterclass, I'll have the ability to tell you what little pivots you need to make in your business to actually get the results you want. This is a very time-consuming thing, this business audit. So this is why we only do this for 5 people, and the group is limited to 10 people max. Brad, go ahead and go to the next slide for me. By the way, just a quick summary of everything. So CEO Masterclass, it's 3 months long. It's every other week. It's recorded, so you can come back and watch it. You're going to get all the downloadable tools and templates. We talked about you'll have access to our learning management system that has everything specific to the Brand Ambassador Program. We're going to share with you our commission split model. We've got a discovery day down in Austin, Texas with us where you can sit behind the scenes and see things as they're happening versus just hearing about it. And then we're going to do a private business audit for you. A little bit of homework you're going to have to do specific to this, but I think it's one of the most empowering things we can do to help you get where you want to go. So you guys heard Dez's story. Dez was able to go from 0 to 38 closings per month using a diversified source of ways of getting listings. Dez is in a small military town, so it's not, and there's a limited number of agents in his market. So, it's not like Dez is in some city where it's super easy. Like he didn't have some advantage that, made him be able to execute on this. We've had some other people like Dez go through the course. We had a gal named Lori Horner go through this, and she was a solo agent selling 25 to 30 homes. And Lori started implementing some of the things from the CEO Masterclass, and in her first year grew 300%. She followed a very similar growth trajectory as Desmond. And we had one other person we worked with, a guy that relocated to San Antonio from Kansas. He had no sphere, didn't know a single person, and he was able to scale the team up to 25 closings per month in less than a year and a half. You guys can actually see an interview of Chad Brady being interviewed by Frank Klesitz of Viral Marketing, because Frank was asking Chad, how on earth did you get $10,000 a month in a market where you knew absolutely nobody? So you're probably hearing a recurring theme here around what the key rocks are that are going to help you grow that we teach in this masterclass. For example, recruiting the right people, getting the money to pay for lead generation, learning how to become a true CEO versus a producing agent. Go to the next slide for me, Brad. So you guys have two options. I think one, well, let me back up. Brad and I had two options. One, we could go as cheap as possible and just sign up thousands of people to go through this course. Or we could require a little bit higher of an investment, but then we, in exchange, we devote a lot more resources to helping you get the results you want. So obviously we went with option two. I couldn't sleep at night knowing that somebody went through this and did not get results. Next slide for me, Brad. So if you guys want to get started now, it's only 3 monthly payments of $497. It's $1,500 total. And don't pay attention to that domain name. We had to create a new domain name for people to sign up for this. Apparently Brokerage Hacks is not very kosher with Facebook and other platforms. We're going to put the link in the chat box. So if you want to sign up for CEO Masterclass, click on the link in the chat box and you can get started. So you pay $500 a month. It's $1,500 total. This will be one thing you do that I guarantee you will have the highest return on investment of anything you've ever participated in your entire life. And I'm super confident in that. So, you've got, for you guys watching this, I guess I see as you have two options. One, you could do nothing and not take the leap of faith, which is 100% risk-free. Or you could pony up the small investment to do this at $500 a month. And, I think you're going to figure out pretty quickly about all the value you're going to get in return. And if it works, great, right? You'll make a ton of money, and hopefully you'll see the same kind of growth some of these other people have seen. And if not, if for some reason in the first 30 days you're like, this is garbage, I'm not learning anything, well, just send us an email and let us know. There's a 30-day guarantee. So if at literally on day 29, 23 hours in and 59 minutes, you could be like, Chris, this is garbage. I didn't learn anything you said I would learn, and I don't see the value in this. Give me my money back. We'll happily submit a refund to you and you can get your money back. So there's literally, in my opinion, there's no risk. At minimum, you're going to get 30 days of free training. If you go through and cancel this on day 29, I think by day 29, you'll realize that this could be the life-changing, piece of knowledge you need. This is like the little golden nugget you've been looking for to get your business where you want it to go. So I think the real question you have to ask yourself is it worth, gambling a few minutes of your time to check this out? And if it does even half of what I've claimed, you heard Dez, he's up to $25,000 per month, $25,000 a month. Does even half of what I've claimed today. I think you'll figure out in less than 30 days it'll pay for itself. So you can pay $1,500 up front or do 3 payments of $497. The link to get started is in the chat box. It's on the right-hand side of the chat box. And Maureen is saying she's in coaching now. That's $1,500 per month, not $1,500 for 3 months. So, as for, again, anybody that's been through the program, this is kind of a unique deal because it's a little bit more altruistic for Brad and I. In fact, like I said, we're in the middle of filing our 503 or 501c, whatever it is, to make this a nonprofit, and to keep this really cheap for people to go through the course. So our 501c3, yes, thank you guys. Yeah, we're in the middle of filing that as we speak. So anyways, this is like something like Brad and I do from our, from the heart. It's our way of giving back to the real estate world. But again, just a recap of everything included: our CEO masterclass. Brad and I, when we paid to go through a CEO leadership course, it was a lot more than $5,000. It was $2,000 a month for 6 months. We paid 12 grand. All of our downloadable tools and templates, the brand ambassador program, the detailed agent splits, the discovery pass down here to spend a day with us in Austin, the business audit, all that's included. Like I'm probably underestimating the 16,000 because I spent a hell of a lot more than that to figure all this out. So it's a lot more than that actually. So anyways, and then just a recap of the classes that we'll be teaching that Des is going to be participating in. That Q&A section we do every other week, by the way, is where you guys can ask Des a lot of questions. Because, he was in your same position, likely just 3 years ago. So class 1, again, about interviewing, recruiting, and vetting talent. Class number 2 is about that value proposition to attract agents. Like, how do you get those commission splits set up to attract agents? Number 3, the lead generation machine. How do you get your agents set up for success? What opportunities do you give your agents to make them perform at that level that Des talked about? For example, his listing agents selling 120 to 130 homes a year. By the way, that's not a fluke. By the way, if you guys come down to Austin, you spend a day with us down in Austin, you can meet all of our listing agents in Austin. We have about, I think, 6 or 7 of them. The worst performing one is selling about 85 to 90 homes, and the best performing one selling 130. So this is not a fluke. It's a repeatable process you can implement too. So class number 4, the art of leadership. The art of leadership is about how to create that high energy environment where it doesn't feel like you're herding cats. Class number 5, we dive into all the KPIs and the accountability tools so that you can do a great job coaching and leading your agents to success. And then the last class, there's some homework involved with this one. And we talk about how to, optimize your business and build a roadmap for the next 12 months so you know how to do the right things in the right order. Again, these classes are every other week. We teach for about an hour, and then there's 30 minutes of Q&A, and you can ask, anything you need. Looks like Amy is on the chat. Amy, thanks for chiming in on the chat box. Amy actually just visited us. She went through the CEO masterclass and just did her discovery day down in Austin. Amy and her husband, you guys are freaking amazing, by the way. Y'all are unbelievable. I want to go ahead and open it up for Q&A. So we've got about 4 minutes left. If anybody has any questions specific to anything we've referenced, if you guys have figured anything about Brad and I, we're probably the most open, transparent people you ever meet, probably to our detriment most times. So we're here to help you guys in any way we can. And feel free to chime in any questions you have about the chat. One of the most common questions I get is, what if I miss a class? Like, what if I can't come to one of y'all's live classes? The good news is they're recorded, and you'll have access to the recordings, like, anytime you want. So just in case you miss a class, you always have recordings. Another question people ask me is like, what if something comes up in between the 2 weeks? You guys can fire off an email and ask us anything you want. And we'll answer, we'll get back to you via email, no problem. We don't really communicate with people one-on-one with our cell phones. However, we do have, at the end of the 90 days, that one-on-one business audit call that Brad and I both do. And that's, where we'll spend probably 60 minutes to an hour, going through, your business and trying to figure out what are the tweaks you need to make to get where you want to go. Sometimes there's this really famous quote that I reference quite a bit. And they say, it's not the fear of what you don't know. It's the fear of what you know that's not so. I really, when I heard that, I think about that quote all the time now. It's like I'm constantly now challenging the things that I thought were a certain way, which may not necessarily be the way. So again, it's not the fear of what you don't know. It's the fear of what you know that's not so. That's probably one of that quote, man. It just speaks so loudly to so many people I meet in the industry. And it's more so from a personal experience of me screwing up and realizing what I thought was the case was not actually the case. So anyways, we've got about 2 minutes left. Feel free to chime in on the chat box. If you have any questions. Adele said she put it in her signature. I love that. It's freaking awesome. By the way, if you guys haven't heard of our podcast, the podcast is called CEO Secrets. You can watch the CEO Secrets podcast on Spotify or Apple or any of those websites or any of those platforms. We interview a lot of people in the industry, whether it's, real estate team owners, people in finance, accounting. I interviewed a regional partner for Keller Williams. He owns, I think, 7 KW franchisees. I've interviewed the guy from My Outdesk, like a plethora of resources through CEO's Secrets, the podcast. What am I missing, Brad? I feel like we put so much stuff out there, and obviously Brad and I every 2 weeks we try to broadcast some free content. If you guys haven't watched we did a video a couple months ago where we did a live run through of our QuickBooks. We literally opened up our QuickBooks account and went through the P&L to explain how to set up your P&L from a categories perspective and to get all your financials in alignment. And we literally showed everybody behind the scenes.
Literally, he goes, "We're gonna put our financials on the screen share."
Brad thought I was crazy.
Okay, cool. And we give away that budget template too. So if anybody wants the budget template, give Adele a shot.
If anybody's interested in seeing that, we got it recorded. All right, so we got about 30 seconds left. If anybody has any questions before we sign out, please chime in on the chat box. How many, Adele, can you let us know how many seats do we have left for the class? How many seats? How many people have signed up so far? Chime in on the chat box if you already signed up. How many people do we have signed up? How many seats do we have left? Okay, so 4 people have already signed up. So we got about 6 seats left. Cool. And so this will be probably the last. This will be the last group we take on for the month of May. So it sounds like there's 6 seats left. So I would expect those to be filled up by this weekend. So you guys, if you're serious, if you want to get started now, if you're not happy with where your results are, like we're halfway through the year. And if you're not happy with where your results are in 2021 and you want to figure out how to make change happen right now, our next class starts May 27th. Somebody just asked for the sign-up link. The sign-up link is chriswaterscoaching.com/CEO. Go to that page, just put in your information to get started. James, go ahead and go there, check it out, and get signed up. So sounds like we got 6 classes, 6 people left. If James signs up, that means we have 5. All right, guys. Well, I don't see any other questions. Thank you guys for jumping on and attending. And I'll look forward to seeing everybody on May 27th.
Bye, guys. See you
Bye,
later.
everybody.